Welcome to the Strategic Veteran, where we chart the course from service to civilian triumph. I'm Adam Peters, a veteran, entrepreneur, and your fellow navigator in the quest for a life of impact and fulfillment. My mission is simple: to empower you with the tools and stories that turn challenge into opportunity. Having walked the path from active duty to where I stand now, I understand the search for purpose that comes with hanging up the uniform. It's a path I've walked, with its trials, its tribulations, and its victories, and it's a journey we're on together. This podcast is more than just conversation. It's a beacon for those seeking to redefine our missions through entrepreneurship. It's about igniting the entrepreneurial spirit that lives within us, the spirit that compels us to create, lead, and make our mark on the world. Here we connect with veterans who have built businesses, sparked change, and found their purpose in the marketplace of ideas. They're not just surviving, they're thriving. They've transformed their service into startups, their experiences into enterprises, and they're proof that you can too. So whether you're scribbling business plans on napkins or stepping into the arena of innovation, remember, you're not alone. You're in good company. So let's explore these stories of transformation and take the first steps together on our path to purpose. Let's begin. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Strategic Veteran. I'm your host, Adam Peters, and today we have the privilege of speaking with Holly Taylor, a retired Navy officer with an impressive 26-year career. Holly's journey is a testament to resilience, leadership, and perseverance. She's held various leadership roles throughout her service, completed 5 deployments, and gained invaluable experience in diverse environments such as Iraq and Guantanamo Bay. After a distinguished military career, Holly faced new challenges in transitioning to civilian life. She navigated the complexities of corporate America, overcame a toxic work environment at Amazon, and battled breast cancer. These experiences fueled her passion for leadership and helping others, leading her to found her own business as an executive virtual assistant. Holly is also a public speaker and mentor dedicated to confidently and purposefully guiding others through their transitions. Today, Holly will share her incredible journey from the Navy to entrepreneurship, discuss her challenges, and offer valuable insights into resilience and leadership. Join us as we delve into the story of Holly Taylor, a true embodiment of what it means to be a strategic veteran dedicated to leading and inspiring others. Holly, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Adam. I appreciate it. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, let's jump right in and let's talk about where did you grow up and what inspired you to join the Navy?
So I grew up in a very small town in North Louisiana. It's near Ruston, where the home of Louisiana Tech. So it's between Monroe and Shreveport. I graduated with 18 people, so we're not quite on the map.
Wow.
Very small town.
That's crazy.
And about what inspired me is I was really big into basketball. I loved playing basketball. I grew up watching the Lady Texters, Kim Mulkey, Teresa Weatherspoon, and wanted to be just like them. There was no WNBA back in the day, back in the early 90s. And so my dad said, you're not going to make any money playing basketball. You're going to go to college to be a nurse. And it's not really what I wanted to do. I had heard about a friend that had joined and got money for college through the GI Bill. So I said, well, I'll go get my own money so that I can do what I want to do. And joined the Navy and just never looked back. Honestly, I originally joined to just do the 4 years and get the GI Bill, and I stayed for 26 years.
Why the Navy?
I went to the Marine Corps recruiting office, and nobody was there. So I just went next door to the Navy.
You didn't even consider Army or anything else?
No, honestly, the little recruiting station that was near my hometown, it was only Marine Corps and Navy in that little area.
Monopolizing. Good for them. They got the recruiting game on lockdown. It's funny because I've talked to so many people on this show now, and it seems like 90% of everybody's first stop is the Marine Corps. It's always the Marine Corps.
Yeah, well, my dad was in the Marines, and I wanted to prove to him that I could do it too.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair, particularly because he's telling you you're going to go to nursing school, right? And that's not what you wanted to do. No, I get it. So you came in actually enlisted. You weren't always on the dark side as an officer.
Yeah, and I didn't even know what a rate was, honestly, or y'all call it MOS. And it was June of 93, went to the recruiting office. I was already 18. So back up to high school, I graduated and I did what my dad told me to do. And I went to Louisiana Tech, and I had been at Tech for a year. And I was just like at my point where I needed to to quit and do something else. And so I was 18. I went and signed up for the Navy without telling my dad because I was 18. And then it was June of 93. They didn't have a spot for me until April of 94. So I would have had to waited almost a year to go to boot camp. And something happened. I don't want to really talk about it on this podcast, but I got put on a roll-up list, which means you leave for the Navy as soon as somebody else can't go, and you just take their spot. And so in 2 weeks, I was gone to boot camp. And there was a girl that got pregnant, I guess, and she couldn't go. So I took her spot, and she was going to be a storekeeper, which is like logistics. And so I took her job and left.
So here you are off to Navy boot camp to be a storekeeper. And how long did you stay enlisted before you made the transition over to the dark side, as I like to call it?
So I was enlisted for, I guess, 13 years because I made E7 before.
Okay. So I assume you were working on college during that time, taking advantage of some of the benefits they have.
Yes, I didn't have a degree when I got commissioned. The Navy has a limited duty officer program, probably equivalent to like chief warrant officer in the Marine Corps and Army.
Okay.
Where if you are an E6 eligible for E7 or E7 and above, you can apply for a direct commission. We call it limited duty because you are limited in the duties that you can serve in. And so I applied, got accepted. I did not have a degree. I didn't get my degree till after I became an officer.
So you get the degree, I assume, probably so you can hold a command. Is that probably what they limit, or?
No, yeah, they do limit. They limit operational command. We can command like a shore duty, but we cannot like go command a ship or a squadron or anything like that.
Okay, that's awesome. So what are some of the key experiences during that 26 years of service that shaped your leadership style?
Probably just, having somebody that believed in me and thought that I could do and be whatever I wanted to. That really, like from a very early age, I got into some trouble. I was drinking just like everybody else I was hanging out with. And also remember, I only came in the Navy to get the GI Bill. I had no plans of staying. So I was not a lifer, as they used to like to say. And so I just was not very squared away. And I had some people, I had a guy, as one specific mentor that, he saw potential in me, and that really made me see potential in myself. And so that shaped how I led, going forward. That was probably the biggest thing that stands out to me right now. I mean, I could name a ton of things that I've learned. Networking is huge. Treating people with respect. When I made in the Navy, when you make E7, you go through they used to call it initiation, but now they've moved on to call it transition. I don't even know that it's called transition anymore, but when you go from E6 to E7 in the Navy, you literally change uniforms, and it's a big deal. You go from wearing like blue to khaki. And so that was in that transition, you learn a lot about networking and how you can't do it all by yourself. You've got to really depend on other people and not be scared to ask for help and know who to go to. I learned a lot about delegation, and if you can't do what is asked of you, say it's okay to say, I don't know, but I'll figure it out.
Yeah, that's a big key. I mean, that was for us when you're going for E5 and E6 in the Army, you have to board. And that's one of the things that was drilled into me by my leaders is like, there's so much information. They're going to come at you rapid fire. You can't know all of it. It's okay to say, I don't know, but at least have a general idea where you can go find it. Well, I know I can find that in FM 21-28 or something like that, right? So, that's awesome. I'm curious because I've talked to several other females coming into the military, and they have a lot of issues that I'm pretty disgusted by from mostly males. And it sounds like you found a mentor early on who, was really willing to help you. Did you experience some of the other harassment type things and the challenges that it seems that most females face when they come in the military with just having to go above and beyond to prove your worth and that you belong here type stuff? It really makes me sick that this stuff is happening. I just did an interview with Rochelle Smith, who leads the Silence Voices of MST podcast. And that conversation was tough because she had a rough Air Force career. And, I've talked to Alex Tessier. I've talked to several other women who have really similar experiences.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure I experienced some of that stuff. I just don't really like to focus on it. I like to think that I just do my best and I get what I get and I get to where I'm going because I'm the best at what I do. I could hear people talk about, oh, she got there because she's a female. Right? I never wanted to be that. So I just worked hard. And I tried to not focus on being a female and,
just let the work and the performance speak for itself. Mm-hmm. And I like that. That's awesome. You had 5 deployments during your career, that's one more than I had, but you also had like twice the time in service. So I'm curious, can you share some moments from those deployments that impacted you and kind of shaped you as a leader and pushed you in the direction that you're headed these days? Because I know that there's plenty that came out of those experiences.
Yeah. I probably had more than 5. Probably 5 big ones. Like my very first 2, like sea duty, was with the Seabees. I don't know if you're familiar with the Seabees.
Yeah.
Okay. So when I came in the early 90s, we weren't allowed on combat ships. And so I was one of the first females in a Seabee battalion. And the first battalion I was in, we deployed to Rota, Spain, and Guam. Easy, right? That's really easy. But then I went to my second CB battalion, and that was when Iraqi freedom started. We were literally sitting on the edge of Kuwait, just waiting for the president to give the call. And we went forward with Task Force Mike. So we were with the first wave into Iraq. I think it was 2003. And it was a lot of you prepare. So we're marching 5 miles in our MOP level 4 gear. We're getting qualified on the weapons because the Seabees, they don't just use you I'm not just typing up paperwork or being a legal clerk or a supply clerk. I'm also crew serve weapons. So I was a 60 gun team leader on that deployment. And so all of that stuff, I realized, every day we were having to count our ammo. We were having to clean our gas masks, do all this stuff, right? I kept a journal and I go back and read it. And it's like I was so young and naive. I was like, this is so stupid. I don't know why we have to do this. But now looking back, it's like that whole unit came back with everybody with we had a few injuries, but we didn't have any losses. And that's because we have good leaders making us do those small things that were critical to stay alive.
It's so funny to look back on those experiences. I had the same thoughts. Why am I doing PCCs and PCIs? Like we do this every single, you become complacent. You don't understand why you're doing it. But now looking back on it, it's been, my first deployment was the end of 2004. So it's been 20 years since my first combat deployment. And looking back that far, that attitude was awful. I should have never had that attitude, but it really is in a different light now. And I see it from a different, lens. And it's like, man, this definitely was preparing me for where I'm supposed to be right now. And I wish I would have had the foresight to see it then.
Yeah, exactly. And then after those, my next big deployment was Guantanamo Bay. I actually did 2 tours there. And then I finally got to go to a ship. And then I did 2 almost back-to-back carrier tours. And that was very eye-opening as well.
What is life like on a carrier?
Gosh, it's so hard to explain because I'm assuming that everybody has their own different point of view, right? I was an admin and my office was below the water, and my first ship, we went on a 10-month deployment. It was the longest scheduled deployment since Vietnam. And we were in the Middle East the whole time. Our port visits were Bahrain, Dubai, Bahrain, Dubai, Bahrain, Dubai for 10 months, every 30, 45 days. And we did get Australia on the way home. That was nice. But so it's just Groundhog Day. You're doing the same thing every single day. So I focused on my job, working out, I actually had to learn how to drive the ship on that deployment. So I was getting qualified. So I was driving the ship from 2 a.m. to 7 a.m. Then I was the captain's secretary. So I'd have to go do my real job, try to get some sleep and then go try to get qualified. So I was doing that. So that deployment honestly went by really quickly because it's just Groundhog Day.
Hey, burning the candle at both ends, just constantly having something to do. How cool was it to learn how to drive a freaking aircraft carrier?
Honestly, that is the one thing that I'm most proud of over my whole career because that was the hardest thing I ever had to do. And I mean, how many people can say they've operated an aircraft carrier at sea?
Not many.
Yeah.
And I think that's really cool because I don't even know like what goes into driving a boat that big, right? Like it's hard enough to drive like a personal watercraft because everything's just so unfamiliar and different. And I know it takes a long time for, I remember going to Pearl Harbor for the first time, and I think it's the Navy that runs the tours out to the observation, and just looking at how they drive those boats and they just whip them in and dock them, and I'm like, man, this is hard enough to learn. Now imagine doing that on a floating city.
Yeah,
that's incredible. Good for you. I that's awesome. So let's move in. What 26 years, was it just time to be done?
No, honestly, I wanted to go to 38. That was my goal because I wanted to make 06. And I was one of the people that always just did what I was told, right? Holly, we need you to go to Gitmo again. Okay, roger that. I'll go. After that, you need to go back. You need to go to an aircraft carrier and get your PIN, learn how to drive. Roger that. Let's go. There's only 11 aircraft carriers in the Navy, so there's not very many opportunities to get to go do that. And so I thought it was they were doing me a favor. And so after that 10-month deployment, I got shore duty, which you're supposed to go sea, shore. And I was only there for about 6 months, and they said, we need you to go back to sea to be a department head on an aircraft carrier. I was at 03. Department heads are normally 04s in zone for 05 or 05s. And there's only 12 department heads on a carrier. And I was like, you want me to go as a 03? And they're like, yeah. I was like, can you, I had been selected for 04, but it just hadn't put it on yet. And I was like, can we just wait until I put on 04? So at least I have a little bit more rank. Nope, we need to go right now. So not even missing a beat. I was like, okay, sign me up. Let's go. I never ever, like, my husband, he's so supportive, and he was so mad at me about that decision. He was just like, he's like, when are you going to stop saying yes? You just drag me around all over. Like, I can't believe you're saying yes again. They know they can call you and say, Holly, go, and you'll do it. And I was like, come on, Jerry, this is a huge opportunity. I'm going to be a department head on an aircraft carrier. It's going to be great. Went, did my thing. By the time I left, I was ranked number 104 on the ship. I was the admin officer, so in charge of everybody's pay, records, the captains, anything that went to the captain had to come through admin. And we have like this big audit, right? Everybody's scared of it because it deals with money and making sure you're paying people. And I scored really high on the audit. I got command qualified, which meant whenever I made 05, I'd be eligible for command. I was on the ball. And it came time for me to call for orders. And they were like, we have Bahrain, Japan, or Korea, all unaccompanied. And I was like, I just did a 10-month deployment on an aircraft carrier. I got 6 months of shore duty. I came and blew this department head tour out of the water as an 03. And now you want me to go overseas unaccompanied? When all my peers, now I'm an admin officer, so I can see every other admin officer in the fleet and where they're at, how long they've been there. And I saw all my peers sitting on shore duty for 5 and 10 years at a time, and they were still promoting. So I was like, no. And I just gave them the middle finger, and it's like, enough's enough. I'm out. 26 years is good. And I threw it all away.
So there wasn't, you didn't have any like relationships you could leverage to try and help?
I didn't want to, because I didn't, like I said before, I wanted to get things, because of me and who I am and what I've done. I shouldn't have had to leverage anybody. And that's what my husband was like.
Yeah.
My husband was like, well, I can't believe you're just going to throw it all away. And I was like, well, do you want me to go to Bahrain, Japan, Korea without you? And he's like, no, but you could call somebody. I was like, I'm not calling anybody. I shouldn't be treated this way. I have done everything that they've asked me to do.
I can relate to that certainly, because after my second deployment with the third ID, I had orders to go to Alaska, and that's really I was the guy who came in generally like excited about being moved around every 2 years. Like I just like to be in new places and experience new things. And so being stuck for almost, my entire first contract of 6 years doing 2 deployments with the third ID, I was ecstatic to get orders to Alaska. I'm like, this is awesome. And then like I had already cleared CIF, and then they just stopped moving me to send me on a third deployment. And so that's why I ask if you leveraged anything, because I was calling everybody to try and figure out. I wasn't trying to get out of a deployment, because in fact, I would have just moved my deployment up. Oh, well, I would have pushed it back by about 6 months, and I would have ended up in the same place I ended up in for my fourth deployment with the brigade I was going to in Alaska. So I was just like, I'm not dodging anything. I just want to go see somewhere else and experience something else in the Army. And I get it. I can totally relate. So 26 years, you throw all of that away. Now you're transitioning. And this is where things get rough, particularly because you had lots and lots of challenges, from not having a network to personal loss within your family to fighting breast cancer to toxic work environment. So let's explore your transition and like how all of this started. And when you decided, like, okay, here's the middle finger, like, bye, I'm out. You pissed away a good thing here, and I'm out. What were you originally thinking you were going to go do?
So first of all, I thought that people would say, "Oh, wait, no, Holly, don't go. We love you. We want to keep you. What can we do to help you?" And that call never came. As a matter of fact, my retirement was approved within 5 days. And
it's a testament to how you really are just a number to the military. Yes. And this is branch wide. It doesn't matter. I think it probably matters a little bit more if you're like a general officer, like have a star or more, but anything probably below that, you really are just a number, and they don't give a shit.
Yeah. And they, I didn't have a plan. And so another thing too is I pissed a lot of people off on the ship, because they gave me that number one ranking on my fitness report that basically could have went to somebody else that needed it for their career. And
that's a good final fuck you to them for passing you over and not putting you on shore duty and wanting you to take all the shitty assignments because you did say yes so many times. And I'm with you. I think it's great. Good for you taking that spot from somebody else. You earned it. Nobody else did.
Yeah. So luckily I did have a house already in Alabama. I knew that we would retire in Alabama. So we already had a house. And so we had a house to come home to. As far as what I was going to do, I had a little bit of GI Bill left. And so I was like, well, I'll go get a PhD and I'll be a professor at the college. And I got it. That was another like huge, it is so hard to get accepted into a PhD program. I mean,
it really is.
Yeah. And so I got accepted. I started the PhD program, and I was working at Lululemon, the yoga pants store.
I was going to bring this up. So I think this is important to talk about, and we can explore this after you're done telling the story. But you're a Navy 04 with all these high marks it's not beneath you to go work at Lululemon. I think you mentioned a cookie place, and then to Amazon. I also worked at Amazon, so I'm really excited to talk to you about that experience, because that place sucks.
Yeah. So I was 2 semesters in to the PhD program, and my goal was to maybe get a grad teaching assistant role, because I didn't need the money, right? I had my retirement, and I was willing to work for free. I just wanted them to pay for the rest of my college, because I was not going to pay for a PhD. And I just couldn't get a foot in the door. And so I quit that, continued working at Lululemon. And it was just very, they would ask me to apply for a management role. I would apply, and then they would select some little college kid for the manager over me. And I'm just like, what is going on? This cannot be real.
Right. And, considering you just managed an entire aircraft carrier.
Yeah. And then the cookie place, I was fascinated by this lady who started this cookie store. She did it out of her driveway for 10 years. And then she opened up her first storefront. And I was like, man, if I could go work for her and learn entrepreneurship from her. And so I got a job at a cookie shop, and I was just doing these piddly little jobs. But all the while in the back of my mind, I was just thinking of all my peers, thinking, God, look at Holly. She's folding yoga pants and working with college students. Like all these little voices in my head, right, telling me how pitiful I am and how awful. Like, I can't believe you just threw away 26 years and you're folding yoga pants. And I had a friend that had reached out to me about Amazon, but I just wasn't interested in moving because we had our house in Alabama, and this is where my husband is from. And so I had finally just got to a point where I was like, okay, I need to feel important. I need a good job. And I called him up and I was like, okay, I'm ready to get serious. And he was like, well, they had reached out to me about this global security operations job, but I'm not interested. It's in Phoenix. If you want me to refer you to that manager. I was like, sure. Yeah. Jerry, my husband's a huge golfer, so he's always loved Phoenix. And so I reached out, I got the job with Amazon, and we picked up and moved to Phoenix. And it was right during COVID. It was February of 2020. So we moved out to Phoenix. And honestly, I absolutely loved the job with Amazon because it was not like what everybody thinks at a warehouse. I was in the one and only Global Security Operations Center for Amazon. So I was dealing with all the crises worldwide would get called into where I was at. And I was kind of like the watch commander on my day or my shift. And I was a senior person that would have to triage and deal with, oh, there's a fire here, there's a shooting here, there's a driver that's been kidnapped here. What are we going to do? Who do I need to call? I would have to host conference calls with like VPs and PR and legal. And so that was fun. I really enjoyed it.
Well, yeah, that sounds way more fun than what I was doing. I was just a warehouse worker. And it was, first of all, like, just like they gave me this little scan gun and they're like, go pull a cart and find bays to put things in and just scan stuff. And then your manager walks around. They have no idea who you are. It's so impersonal. They have a picture of you on a laptop. They bring the laptop to you, and basically all they tell you is work faster. You get one 15-minute break and 30 minutes for lunch. And your 30 minutes is consumed by walking from whatever end of the warehouse you are to the only place in the warehouse up front where you can eat food. I lasted 2 weeks before I told them, fuck you, I'm out. I'm not doing this. Like, I'm not above a lot of things, but I was definitely above that because there's no room to grow there really, unless you really want to spend like the first year of your life kind of in those ridiculous, like terrible roles of just stocking things. So
you asked what life is like on an aircraft carrier, and that's what I can compare it to as a warehouse at Amazon.
Yeah. It's an impressive operation they have going on there, but it just wasn't for me at all.
And that's with Amazon. I found out later they hired all these Harvard and Yale grads because they wanted smart people, right? But then they didn't have any leaders. And so they were like, we need to get some military people in here. And so they hire us in at these roles to manage these people that are just awful people that come in. I mean,
they're not good people, are they? Clueless, even.
I had to deal with all the bad stuff, so that's all I ever saw. But it was.
Yeah. You mentioned drivers getting kidnapped. That happens
every day in Mexico. Every day.
Okay.
And in India, they would take them hostage because in India they have to pay upon delivery, and if the person didn't like what was in the package or whatever, they would hold the driver hostage.
I forget how global Amazon really is. Because I'm thinking in terms of like you're dealing with what's going on in the United States. I'm like trying to rack my brain, like who's getting kidnapped in the United States delivering packages? Because I don't care if you're a bad guy or not that's going to kidnap people. Like they all like to order shit. They want their shit to come, as soon as possible. And they're probably not going to mess with the delivery driver. But I forget that it's so global. So India, Mexico, that makes sense.
Oh, we have it right here in the United States too. Like I can't tell you how many calls we got from like the country, like North Carolina. And like an Amazon driver's tire would get flat and they would get stuck at somebody's yard and people would hold them at gunpoint until the police. And I'm just like, you cannot see all the Amazon packages. They're an Amazon driver. What are you doing?
Oh, that's crazy. So you're also dealing with some issues with cancer going on with all of this. So how are all of these? So no professional network, working at Lululemon, working at the cookie shop, which I think actually your approach to that was learning about entrepreneurship, and I think that that's a really good place to learn. I cut my teeth in a vape shop and also managing a gun store before I was like, oh, I can do this. Like I can make all of this stuff better. I can run a business like this. And it was fascinating to me. But then you got some loss in your family also and the breast cancer. So how are you mentally at this point?
So I'm good. I'll back up to when I was with Amazon. I actually got promoted into a program manager role, and they allowed me to work from home so that we could move back to Alabama. Jerry wanted to get back home near his mother. Jerry is also retired military. He was in the Navy for 24 years, and he was like, I don't want to have spent my whole adult life away from my mom, and she was not doing well. And so I was looking for other jobs to move back home, and my manager said, whatever I have to do to keep you. And so he put me in a work from home role, program manager, and allowed me to move back to Alabama and still work remotely. And that was great. It got to where, and I probably did it to myself, but I was literally at my mother-in-law's funeral, and they're texting me about work. And I had got that. That's just one example of the toxicity. And I probably did it to myself because I was like I was in the Navy. I was
Saying
always
yes to everything.
yes to everything. 10 o'clock at night. Oh, you want me to call India at 10 o'clock at night? I'll stay up and do that. 2 o'clock in the morning, somebody from India is texting me. I'll get up and answer. And so I just kind of run myself ragged. And then my stepson passed away. Then my nephew committed suicide. And then I got breast cancer. And then my mother-in-law died. And so it was just like boom, 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 back to back. And I was just like, okay, I need to take a break. And taking that break is probably something I should have did when I retired from the Navy. And
Yeah, because you first of all, the whole saying yes to everything, that's a hard lesson in setting boundaries, right? And we're not very good at that when we come from lengthy periods of time in the military, because either you're going to volunteer to do something or you're going to be voluntold to do something. It just looks better on you when you volunteer. So you just start saying yes to everything, that becomes your habit, but you carry that with you into the civilian world. And then before you know it, you're at funerals dealing with work stuff. And that's not a place anybody wants to be.
yeah. But with the cancer, I am very lucky and blessed. It was small. It was not staging. It was not in my lymph nodes. So I just had it removed. Now, they did want to do radiation, and they wanted to put me on some kind of medicine for 10 years. And I said no to all that. I said, you can remove it, and that's it. I'm not doing anything else. And it's been 2 years now, 2 years. And I've now moved from every 3 months to every year. I can go in for mammogram and MRI.
Congratulations. That's awesome. So another significant challenge, and I believe this is probably one of the bigger challenges, is not having a professional network after 26 years. And this is all too common because we tend to, like attracts like or whatever, we tend to network with those in the military, but we don't do anything outside of the military. And in the last 10 months, I've learned how important it is to build a network outside of the military and just what comes with that. So do you mind sharing kind of your thoughts on how detrimental it was to you not having the network getting out, and how almost painful it can be to start building that network when you get out, but how rewarding it can be also?
Yeah, I really feel like, how looking back now, like I just left the military abruptly and I didn't have a plan. I think that if I had to go back and do it over again, I would have started building that network while I was still in the Navy. I would have started thinking about. Now, I didn't think about it because I didn't never want a life outside the Navy. But if I could go back, I would think about set yourself up for if you do want to get out one day, have those options in place. And you just never know. Like when I got that job at Amazon, I was making more money than I could ever have fathomed that I would make. And knowing that, if I would have known back then what I know now, I probably would have gotten out a lot sooner.
Yeah.
We think that in the military, we think we're so unique and better. At least I did. I thought, I'm like head and shoulders. But there are some very good people in the civilian world too that are a lot smarter. And just because they didn't serve in the military does not mean they're not good leaders. So it's very competitive, and you're very marketable on the outside. You can do very well. And so I feel like if you set yourself up with that network ahead of time, you'll just have that cushion in place in case you want to do something. So when I left Amazon and I took that break, when I started looking for something else, that's when I really felt it, that I didn't have that network. Because even when I got with Amazon, I was like, okay, I'm good. I'm not like I'm set up for my next, whatever, 10 years, and then I'll retire and not have to ever work again.
Yeah. Well, rude awakening, huh?
Yeah.
So another problem that you stressed on, in addition to the network, was, I think by building a network, you learn how to translate all of your military experience into a language, civilian employers understand and value. I know that to be true. And so how did you eventually learn how to translate all of that so that you could set yourself up? Not that it really matters, because now you work for yourself and it doesn't matter, but
I paid way too much money for somebody to tell me, honestly. I would never do that again. There's a girl. She's actually was in the Navy, and we've known each other for years. But her name is Kathy Borowski, and if you follow her, she shares tips, and she's very good at telling people how to, go find people that are doing what you want to do, and look at the language they use, look at how they describe what they do, and then translate your stuff to sound like theirs.
And that, that's the same advice I give people for how to network just in general, is go look at people who are doing something that you might be interested in and connect with them and just reach out. The worst thing they're going to say is no. And I haven't had a whole lot tell me no. Most of them are happy to share what they're doing with me, welcome me to their network, let me know if I ever need anything or have questions to reach out. And so I think that's sound advice. Where did the entrepreneurial bug come from? Like, when did that hit you, and when did you know that it was time to start working for yourself and start your own thing?
When I quit Amazon, and then I took a break, and then I got into doing some leadership coaching with a company that they go into high risk organizations like chemical plants, manufacturing companies, and they coach leadership. And this organization is ran by a lot of retired military guys, and that was their first female hire. They said they had gotten a lot of feedback that they have all these coaches come in, but they don't have any females, and they have female employees, and so the money was really good. There was a lot of travel, and I won't say I was promised, but I was told there's so much work. And so I agreed to do it. And then I sat around for a month waiting for a phone call that never came. And I was just like, I'm not doing this. And I'm not struggling for money, right? I have a retirement. I'm comfortable. But I just wanted to do something. I don't want to get stagnant. I want to keep my brain active. I want to help people. I want to contribute to society. And so I was just like, I can't sit around waiting on somebody else. And I definitely don't want to go back and risk working in an environment like I was at Amazon. And so I was like, I was an admin officer in the Navy. I was a secretary. So I was like, well, I had heard about Belay Solutions. I don't know if you've heard of them, but they pair people with companies and executives that need a virtual assistant. And so I called them. I immediately got hired and got paired up with a doctor out of Beverly Hills, plastic surgeon, I believe. And he had sales reps all scattered out throughout the United States that would sell his product that he produced. they would send me the orders. I would place the order. I would do commission sheets, just little admin stuff. And then I found out, and it was nice, I like it, but it was chump change. And I found out that Belay was getting, like, say this doctor pays Belay $2,000 a month. Belay gets $1,000, I get $1,000. So
they're taking 50%? No way. No way.
So I was like, I need to cut out the middleman. Like, this is ridiculous. And then plus I felt like my skills were way above what this guy was, what they were paying me and what this guy needed. And so I was like, I could make so much more. And so that's when I started leveraging LinkedIn and leveraging myself as a virtual assistant. And I got so much work that I had to just quit. I was just like, I can't keep posting about this because everybody keeps calling. And I just took on so many jobs, and that's how it started.
So that's the first foray into entrepreneurship. I bet hindsight's 2020. You could have taken that work and hired extra assistants and really had a kind of a virtual assistant kind of staffing agency if hindsight's 2020. And I like that you mentioned that you started leveraging LinkedIn, because my next question for you was, discuss the process of building that network, because you're right. There's so much money in freelancing, in any kind of skill that you have, admin to virtual assistants. Right. And so LinkedIn is a great place, particularly for virtual assistants, because everybody is business oriented there and everybody needs some kind of help inside of their business to free up their time. So, what was your approach to really getting yourself out there on LinkedIn and starting to build that network?
Just telling my story, and finding people, telling my story, and then finding people that I liked what they were talking about, and just start building that genuine, authentic relationship. And then people just started reaching out. I don't have anybody, like, I can tell you so many stories about people that I had followed and thought that they were something, and then realized I wasn't even talking to them. But when somebody follows me or messages me, I'm going to respond. It's going to be me. It's not going to be a bot. It's not going to be somebody that I've hired to do it. Like, that's one thing. It's genuinely me. And that's what I was looking for and really focusing on, was just building those authentic relationships.
I'm so glad that you said that right now, because that's my exact approach. There are things that I do have others doing for me, but the outreach, the relationship building, all of that is still me. Any comment on my stuff is me. Any message that you send me is me. Anything, it's still me. And I think that authenticity goes a long, I think it's the new digital currency, to be honest. Authenticity will get you so far. So thank you for touching on that, because it's very true. And I had interactions early when I started my journey with people I thought were like, you kind of idolize them because they're further ahead than you are. And then you find out, like, oh, you're full of shit. Like, you're full of shit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This one person that I was interacting with, he wanted to know my price. I told him. He's like, that's too expensive. And then I kept interacting with him. And then he reached out a couple months later and was like, is your price still the same? I said, yes. He's like, I'm ready to go forward. We had a meeting, and he wanted to hire me to do all of his LinkedIn, to respond, to do his posts, because he hates talking to people. He hates people. He doesn't. And I was just like, oh my God, I just thought I was talking to this really nice guy that enjoyed connecting, and it wasn't real.
Did you do the work?
No. Mm-mm.
Good for you. Good for you. How are you in a people business and you hate people?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's ridiculous. What are your core values that are guiding you in your personal and professional life right now?
Gosh, I don't know. Integrity, definitely. Authenticity, and probably empathy.
Yeah. And how do they help you influence your business decisions?
Well, I've told you, I have an issue saying yes to everything. So I'm really trying to use that stuff to say no, or not get myself into situations that I am going to be uncomfortable, just like that guy is a perfect example. I could have easily said yes and then been uncomfortable, but I didn't.
Yeah.
And then I just am really hoping to help others. I I recently like I said, I took a break from LinkedIn because I started this other business. It's a spray tanning business. It's just something fun that I like to get spray tanned. And so I decided to start it and try it out. I'm not trying to make a fortune doing it, but
Well, if it's fun, I mean, that's the thing. Like that's why I believe, the path back to purpose after we transition out is through entrepreneurship. And it can look a number of different ways. You don't have to build $1 billion company. You can build that side hustle like a spray tanning business because you're interested in it. It's fun. You participate in it yourself. There's some perks with owning your own spray tan business, like no more paying for spray tan, right? Like let your customers pay for it for you. And it's okay that is if that's what your life looks like for you and that's what resonates with you and you can get out of bed every day and not hate doing it, then do that. Like who cares? You know what I mean? And then you also speak publicly, right? So you've got speaking fees that come in that way. I'm sure you're probably still doing some of the admin virtual assistant stuff, or no?
yes, I am. I actually have one company here local in Birmingham that I work maybe 1 or 2 days a week for them. And then I have, it's all virtual. And then I have an attorney that I am still doing paralegal work for out of San Diego, helping military people.
Look at you go. And then the spray tan business. How's that? I'm really curious about that. So you participate in spray tan, you like it, it's fun. So how did you decide to get into this? Like what was the process for you? Because I get a lot of vets that are transitioning or have transitioned that reach out to me because of my whole shtick. We got connected that same way, but they asked me questions about franchises, and I now, inside of the Stronghold, which is finally launched, by the way, I partnered with this couple who really want to educate veterans on franchise ownership. And I don't know anything about franchises. I know enough about them to just not be interested in them. So, anybody can come to the Stronghold. They can watch their little 8-minute webinar that really gives a breakdown of what franchising is, how they help. They're not pushy people. They realize the sales cycle is long and want to make sure you have all the information. But how did you go about getting into spray tan?
Well, I just found somebody that would train me, paid way too much money for it.
That's a theme for you, isn't it?
I know. It's like but I just keep telling myself I'm learning all these lessons so I can help other people. And I bought the equipment, which is not very much. And I was like, I'll just start with my neighborhood, see how it goes. And it's only been a month, so I'm not getting very many spray tans, but I'm building it. I've got a website. I've done a few paid tans, and I've done a few free ones just to try to get the word out. But what I would really like to start doing is coaching females, active duty and retired, try to get them while they're still in and just be that sounding board, create a community for them where we can all, like, what did you do? How did you do this? Can you help me with this? Just kind of like build that community. And because I feel when I was transitioning, one of the biggest things is I felt so alone. I felt like as soon as I dropped that retirement, nobody wanted anything to do with me. And I didn't know who to reach out to on the outside. And people on the inside were just like, she must have gotten in trouble. I mean, why would she possibly throw away 26 years? And so there was a lot of things going through my mind. And so I want to be there for other people and say, hey, all that's normal. And I'm here for you. And let's get through this together.
I think that you should absolutely start that community, because that's exactly why I started my community, because I felt alone, and it doesn't have to be that way. You're absolutely right. The minute I entered the med board process, everybody in the Army alienates you. You're just done. You're dead weight essentially, because you're an MTO slot. They can't fill. They need the leadership, but you're holding that until the process is over, and they want nothing to do with you. There's, my ACAP was all done online except for the resume class, which was like 2 hours. And they just say, hey, good luck, go use your GI Bill, get a job. And it's like, well, now what? So I think you're on the right track. I think you definitely absolutely should start that community, because it's definitely important to really kind of get ahead of falling deep into that transition hole where we end up then taking our own lives because we don't see any other way out. And, since we launched a week ago in the Stronghold, we've got like 10 people in there. It's super active. A lot of them are getting value out of it, connecting with like-minded folks and really just learning, what next steps to take, learning who they are, what might interest them. And I think all of that is super important because we spend 26 years in the Navy focused on one job and being the best at that we don't know how to do anything else. It becomes our identity, and we need to get out of that before we get out so that we can have success in the transition. So I commend you. I think you should definitely start your community. Of course. How has your experience as a mentor and a public speaker influenced your approach to running a business? How does it influence ideas to start other businesses?
So it's just we're kind of learning as you go, right? I think that giving yourself permission and grace to fail is what you definitely should do, and just know that you're not going to be perfect. You're not going to have it all figured out. I was guilty of that. I feel like I've waited way too long to start this thing for the veterans. And I feel like I'm still kind of dragging my feet, but I constantly tell myself it may not be perfect the first time, but just you'll figure it out. There's that little voice in the back of your head telling you that people are judging you. Oh, look at her. She's failing. Like, what is she doing? And I think that you just have to tell yourself not to listen to that voice, and that, look, everybody, like, they're not trying, right? They're not doing it. At least you're trying.
And that's just it. For me, like you said, allowing yourself to not be afraid to fail. The way I reframe that for myself, because I was like you, I drug my feet for about 8 years before I really started something, spent a lot of time in the analysis paralysis phase trying to get everything perfect and just have all my ducks in a row. But what I've learned is failure is inevitable. It's also necessary to teach you lessons you couldn't otherwise learn without having failed. And I kind of reframe it in my mind like, yes, it's a failure, but it's a failure forward. It's not a failure backwards. And why is it a failure forward? Because I took an action that would propel me to the next place that I'm trying to get. I didn't take an action that is going to regress me from the place that I'm currently at. And by doing that in my mind, it's like, okay, I welcome the failure. Let me get this out of the way now so I can learn this lesson and move on and not be all bent out of shape about it or scared of it or whatever. Do you find that helps you as well?
Yes, most definitely.
Yeah, for sure. Let's move into some of your achievements. What's an achievement or project since you've gotten out that you're super proud of and that you'll recommend people try to take on something similar for themselves to kind of help propel them forward as they make the transition and start, building their own business or trying to be the best they can be at the company that they're going to go work for?
So I think it just starts with a daily routine, right? I'm a stickler for, I feel like, first of all, I feel like I'm in the best shape of my life. And I'm almost 50. Like, I wish I would have taken this good of care of myself when I was in the military.
Same.
But it's, I move my body every single day. I try to I focus more on strength training now. I used to be cardio, run. Now I'm more strength training and, getting my steps in. I am good about journaling and having quiet time. And then learning something new every day. If while I am moving my body, I'm consuming content. I consume so much content. Sometimes I feel like sometimes that's too much. Like, I just like, okay, I got to take a break from content. But
oversaturation.
Yeah, I'm always listening to something, reading a book, taking some kind of signing up for some kind of training, just so that I can stay relevant and keep my mind active and be able to do the things that I do.
I hear that. I have a test later tonight on the LSS Greenbelt, which is, I'm never going to use it. It's like a corporate thing, but it just lends itself to credibility. It gives you a base of knowledge. Next up is project management, just because, again, it lends itself to credibility, and there's plenty of things that you can learn and implement through those certifications, and they're free to military. A lot of them are for each military. And I hear you. I consume so much. It's walking in the mornings. It's listening to some kind of book, podcast while I'm editing or working, building whatever I'm building. Always something to consume. Podcast study at night to get better at podcasting, like all of these things. So, how do you stay motivated and resilient on the days where, because I know you have them, where you don't want to get up and you don't want to do the thing that moves everything forward? How do you talk yourself out of that kind of toxic mindset and maintain and stay on the grind?
I think just making it a non-negotiable to move my body, because when you move your body, there's something that happens to the chemicals in your brain. And if you could just get yourself to take, even if it's just to go for a walk, I finally got me a walking pad at my desk. And so when I'm feeling blah, I'm just like, okay, I need to take some steps. Or I get outside because the sun and get some air, and it never fails. That snaps me back into place and gets me back motivated.
Yeah, I did my morning walk without headphones this morning, just listening to nature, and my energy levels are way up there today. And I've been doing this week-long LSS Greenbelt class from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. every night, up at 6. Like I'm not conditioned to do that anymore. I'm usually in bed like 9:30, 10 o'clock most nights. But I'm with you. Moving your body, I do it as soon as I wake up. Like there's no negotiation there. That's the first thing I do, is an hour long outside walking with the dogs, just to get my body moving and flowing. And days where I don't do that, or I can't fit it into the schedule, I definitely notice the energy levels are down. The brain chemistry, like you said, it's noticeable. So that's awesome. Looking forward, what are your goals and aspirations for the next few years?
So I want to start this community, like I said, for female veterans, and continue to grow my spray tanning business and just enjoy life, travel, go places I've never been before, and continue to live a healthy life. I'm truly blessed. I thank God. That's another thing I left out was gratitude. Is I start every day, just thanking God for everything I have. Like it's easy to get wrapped up and to talk about all these things that, just like having breast cancer. Everybody's like, oh God, I'm so sorry. I'm like, we're here. I'm here right now, and I'm going to live my life like there's no tomorrow. And I'm grateful for everything that I have and everything that I've done, everything I've been through. I'm grateful for the experiences that I went through in the military. I'm grateful that they only offered me those 3 overseas unaccompanied tours. I would have never had this had they not. So,
it's all about reframing that in your mind. That's what I love about a gratitude practice. If you can start your day with 5 things, the tiniest things that you're grateful for, and it can be waking up that day. It can be the bed that you sleep in, the sheets, the roof over your head. Like if you just start expressing your gratitude towards others and for the things that you have, holy shit, it's something inside of you changes for the better. You don't look at all the living with the Joneses stuff. I need to get this car, or I need that equipment, or whatever. No, it just becomes like it leads into the abundance mindset, right? And then you're like, well, I have plenty, and people do a lot more than I do with less. So what's my excuse? And I love that. I love that so much. You talk about wanting to establish yourself as a thought leader and public speaker. So I also am feeling pretty called to be a public speaker. So this is kind of personal advice for me. What advice do you have for people who want to step up and be leaders in whatever field that they're in, get into public speaking and really become that thought leader? Like what steps should they take?
So I don't feel like I have established myself in that field like I would like to. And I know that I advertise myself as that, but like, honestly, I have not gotten any gigs. But if, for as far as advice is taking some training, taking some courses. And then I recently took a public speaking course. And one of the things is don't be afraid to take the jobs that don't pay. I mean, that's how you're going to get started. And just continuing to post on LinkedIn and engage with people that you want to do what they're doing, just like we said before. Yeah, that's the advice.
I also took I did a interview here with Brian Fleming, who is he was blown up twice in Afghanistan and has been a public speaker for 16 years. He has a really awesome course. It was $100. I'll send you all the resources from that, because he kind of lays out with templated outreach emails and stuff, shows you how to get those non-paying gigs to really start building a name for yourself, gives you some secrets to like filming those for yourself to put your speaking reels together. I'll send all of that to you after the podcast so you have it, because that's what we do here, is share resources. I paid for it, so I'm happy to share it with you because it is quality stuff. Here's an interesting question. You talk about plans to write another book, and I wasn't aware that you wrote a first book. So
yes.
What was your first book, and what is the second book?
So I wrote a chapter in a book.
Okay, a chapter.
Yeah, it's called Unstoppable, and it focuses on all the times I was told no, but I succeeded anyway. And so the next book I'd love to write is about opportunities and how you can turn anything into opportunity. Just like I told you about, not getting the job that I wanted. And so it forced me to get out of the Navy. I got a good job with Amazon. I made more money than I ever dreamed I would make. You have to think about everything that happens to you happens for a reason, and you can make something good out of it.
I like that so much. What are your aspirations for mentoring and coaching? I think the community, we're pretty much beating that. And it's a dead horse at this point. So,
so in the Navy, we had a term that we used. If somebody was a good leader or had been around for a while, we'd say, "Oh, they're so salty." And so that's what I named my tanning business, the salty spray. And it's, because if you look up the definition, it means resilient and tough. And I feel like that describes me well and what I've been through. And so I would love to start that salty girl community for all those other.
Yes. When you're ready to do that, I'm glad to help you get all that together and teach you everything I've learned, because it's a monster, but it's worth it.
Yeah.
For sure. I love that. Salty girl, or whatever you decide to call it. That's awesome. I really like that a lot. Well, we're coming to the end here, Holly. I'm so grateful that you did this with me today. So is there any message or advice that you want the listeners to take away from our conversation today?
Yeah, everybody is unique and has their own path, and don't worry about what everybody else is doing. You just do you and be proud of it, and know that there's people like you and I here to help them, and all they have to do is reach out. It's
the truth. And I'm glad you said that, because I feel like sometimes people really don't think that I'm as genuine as I am when I tell them to reach out to me. And it's not the case. I last night, 11 o'clock at night, I was talking to a 30-year Sergeant Major, just checking in with him because he's going through the shit right now. And, the response to it is like, he's like, "You're a real one. Like, you really do say what, mean what you say what you mean. And thank you for checking up on me." And this community means so much to me. And I don't want to see people struggle like I struggled and like so many others struggle, because it's completely unnecessary. It doesn't have to be that way. And people like you and I are out here to show people the right way and to help them avoid all of those same pitfalls that we fell into. So that's amazing. Where can people connect with you? How can they find you, follow your journey, get in touch with you, hire you as an executive assistant?
So LinkedIn is where they can reach out. And after I have my website for my spray tanning business, but once I start the community, maybe I'll transition the website to cover both. But for now, LinkedIn is probably the best.
Awesome. We'll make sure we link that in the show notes so everybody can find you. And man, I'm just so grateful you were here, Holly. Thank you so much for talking to me today and sharing your wisdom with us. I know this is going to make a difference in a whole lot of people's lives. And then as you launch that community for female veterans, which I think is absolutely needed, there's a lot of, I don't know, there's so many toxic Facebook groups out there that like people can't find a home in. So creating quality community for our veterans is important. And I'm glad that that's something you feel like taking on. Ladies and gentlemen, I give to you Holly Taylor, and please help us like, rate, review, subscribe, download this, get it in front of 1 million veterans before I turn 40 on May 9th, 2025. There's 19 million veterans in the United States, so I know that that's not impossible to do, and we can accomplish it. As always, we'll see you next week. Take care. That's our show, and I'm truly thankful you've joined us at The Strategic Veteran. If our conversation today sparked curiosity, or if you're ready to elevate your game, I'm here to help. Visit thestrategicveteran.com for exclusive show notes and resources, or to book a coaching session directly with me. Take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and share your review. Your support makes all the difference. For more insights and daily strategies, let's connect on LinkedIn and keep the conversation going. Remember, this isn't just a podcast, it's your strategic advantage in action. Until our next rendezvous, stay bold and continue the mission.